What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Essential Scares podcast, the only share that dares to ask the question, is it essential? I am your host, Corbin, and with me today is Alan.
Good morning.
And Bobby.
Good soup.
We have got a great show for you today. We're going to be discussing the finally released, after many delays, Antlers. But before we get into it, Bobby has a spoiler warning.
I do. This will serve as your first one and only spoiler warning for the brand new film Antlers. If you do not want this movie spoiled for you, go to the theater, you dummy. Or skip to the time code ahead for a spoiler-free essential discussion. The spoiler warning has given me the perfect opportunity for this PSA. I feel like Jesse Plemons might just be the surrogate for every white guy in America, better than any of the Chris's in Hollywood ever could be. I've spent my entire life watching this guy, who's only a few years older than you or I, act as honestly and convincingly as humanly possible in roles that expand from orphan to memory to sociopath to detective. Jesse Plemons has always been there. And he's here in Antlers too. So I guess there's that. Corbin?
Yeah, so, I mean, Jesse Plemons, what a great place to start. I mean,
what a triple threat. Actor,
let's just go
actor,
for it.
And actor.
Yeah, the triple threat, easy.
Yeah.
I think that Antlers was an interesting watch overall.
Okay.
This was a movie that, for me, I was definitely part of the mega hype train for. I've been waiting for this movie to come out for forever. I think I saw the first trailer for it 2 years ago in the theaters when it was supposed to come out, like February 2020, and then it was delayed for it was like, first it was delayed for its own reasons, and then it was delayed for COVID reasons, and like, here we are, a year and a half later, and it finally hit. And I think that in a lot of ways it doesn't quite hold up to that. I think if it had just come out when it was supposed to, it probably wouldn't have landed. It might have landed better. It might have hit even better. I think that after waiting for it for 2 years for me, some of the hype took a little bit of the edge off what I was expecting. But I think that the acting did really kind of save it. But Alan, Bobby, I mean, you guys were not quite as excited for this as I was. So
no.
Yeah.
I had zero knowledge or expectation leading into this film.
Yeah, I when you said that you were stoked on it, my first initial reaction was, but why? Like, it just seems like it's gonna be a horror movie. Like, it just seems like it's gonna be like just one of those.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it never seemed like it was gonna be anything like special. I guess I was just like 2 years ago saw a trailer for a Wendigo movie, and I was like, oh, dope! I'm super excited for that, and then just waiting for it built it up in my mind.
And I think actually your hype in it made me think that this was going to be something that's elevated, which I think actually kind of like you being like, oh, it's gonna be great, I'm super stoked for this. I was like, oh, so, and then I saw again Jesse Plemons, and the last movie I think I've seen Jesse Plemons in was I'm Thinking About Ending Things, which is the saddest movie ever made, quite possibly. It's just truly heartbreaking. It's a beautiful movie. You should watch it if you haven't. And so
An essential
I was like,
drama, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. The essential drama even. But so seeing him in a movie like that, I was like, oh, so like Jesse Plemons just decided like, I've made enough money, I'm gonna go do like acting roles I want to do. I become a character actor. I can do But now I'm realizing is he's still like in his 30s, so he just takes roles and then like gets to do art films when he gets them, and has to do like this when he needs money. and he brings it to the table, right? We talked about it. There's a scene. This movie is a not totally effective allegory for abuse. There's some moments that work and some moments that don't, but the whole thing is like one of the main like child actor is like trying to stop his brother and father from becoming a Wendigo, essentially. and it's played on the backdrop of this teacher coming back home to a small town in Oregon, and her brother is the sheriff of the town, and they both suffered. It's implied that at least she suffered some pretty significant physical and sexual abuse. And then there's a scene that I don't know. Me and Corbin both talked about this with Jesse Plemons, where I think it was played to get you more on her side. But he says this line of like, she's like, you didn't have your arm broken, you didn't have all this thing happen, and then he just responds with, you don't know what he did to me. And it was like, I think that was the most effective moment in this entire film.
When you brought up Jesse Plemons, that's the moment in my head. That to me, it's such a. I think it's in part the way he delivers it, just of like the absolute disbelief that she really doesn't know, and it's he's not like mad or frustrated, but truly is just like, you have no concept of what I also went through, which is so much darker when you think about that context of like. You never really know what anyone's going through in any given scenario because we all have our own mental headspace. But adding on top of that, of course, physical, probably also sexual abuse that he dealt with. Yeah. Like, it's...
Gold star.
Exactly. He nails it right there.
Absolutely.
So good.
I mean, he fills in that blank. I mean, Carrie Russell's character runs away or leaves, whatever, right, as soon as she's possible. They don't say exactly when. Let's say 16, right? And she's a couple of years older than he is. And so but the dad had just died, right? And they're clearly like 30. So there is this implication that, he lived with it for another 15 years and she just completely ran away from the whole thing. And he was dealing with it and living with it and suffering from it that entire time. And she's so like caught up in what she experienced, which, everybody's, recovers from abuse in their own way.
Yeah.
But I think that all of the flashbacks and all of the scenes are very much focused on what she went through. And I think it's very powerful how much he's able to, the 15 years of like suffering without her that he's able to convey in like one line of dialogue.
Yeah. Again, he's so good. He's such a great actor. There's this level of even like I want to harp on this line because it's just my favorite part of this movie for as long as possible because I don't want to like ritualistically shit on a film that I thought was pretty okay, like but like
we do that sometimes on the show.
Yeah, we do.
Just rail
wax poetically on how much we hate stuff.
3 out of 5.
Yeah, this movie was dog shit garbage, and I hope everybody who made it feels bad. 3 out of 5.
Yeah,
but like there's so much nuance and I feel like it has to be intentional because like his entire thing is just him like doing that. Like it's just this like underneath anger like of like like he makes these comments that like I thought we could hash it out. I thought we could have these conversations. I thought like I spent 15 years waiting for you to hoping every day you'd come back, like those types of things. And then like there's that line where it's like you have no idea what he did to me. It's almost like he's not angry. He just wants to forgive her for leaving, but like she doesn't get it.
Yeah.
She doesn't get that like she did what she had to for her, but you left me alone with him.
Yeah.
Like
she never asks him about like the time when she was gone or
I want to forgive you, but I'm still so angry with you.
Yeah.
But I have to take care of you because you had to come back here because of like they never outwardly say it, but like you had issues that made you leave California, right? Like you probably had drug or alcohol issues, right? They never outwardly said it, but
it's definitely implied there's some
implied.
alcoholism.
You see it's so blatantly implied, yeah. So like there is these like moments where it's like I have to take care of you, and you don't even get like why I should hate you. Like, it's just so he's the high watermark of this movie by like
absolutely
a long shot.
And I think it's interesting because sometimes you get these performances or these characters in what are overall pretty normal horror movies that end up like standing out for you, you know? Like if it wasn't for him and his role in this movie, like if it was just Kerry Russell's character, she suffers from all the exact same things. She still moves back to town. Maybe she just moves into her dad's house because her dad just died and the house was willed to her, whatever. This is a very typical story. Without Jesse Plemons' character there, the whole movie is kind of less memorable immediately because she's just like a normal horror abuse character, I think. And her part of the allegory stands like 90% the same, you know?
Yeah.
Without the brother there.
She's the reason why it gets messy.
Yeah.
Like, because I feel like this movie, like, not her acting, but like the way that the character is designed, I would say. I don't ever, oftentimes, like, I think actors get the brunt of damage based off of like
from a script.
Yeah. And so I'm not, but like this movie feels like it was written to be released in like 2011 without Jesse Plemons' character.
That's fair.
Like you know what I mean? Like it just feels very.
Have you guys read the short story?
No,
I have not.
So this is based on a short story that is about that old.
Okay.
And so I think that if I'm remembering, his character is added for the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they threw him in to be like, this movie feels like it's The Ring. We must make it better. Like, because like that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of like that era of like.
Yeah, that's fair.
Where they're taking like folklore, but this time it's Native American folklore. Instead of Japanese folklore, and they're like, let's bring it into the new age.
Yeah.
So the guys are dealing meth. Yeah.
On that, I don't know if this could have just been. I saw one trailer for this movie because I saw it in some theater. I don't know. I don't really remember it, but I remember the trailer was pretty solid. I expected the Native American angle of this to have more of an impact or more of anything, as opposed to one guy who basically tells our main characters, hey, it's a Wendigo, and that's it. Like, I don't know. That could have just been my expectations, but I don't. To me, it seems like there's a little bit of missed opportunity there to some degree. Like,
yeah,
you can do so much more by having a more integral character try to walk us through this experience as opposed to a 5-minute sequence in an hour 30-minute runtime film, and that's it for the Native American side of things. I don't know, that seems like such a missed opportunity for me.
Yeah,
only to have him die off screen totally unceremoniously, like that. It is very much. I don't want to be the political guy here, but like there's very white saviory aspects to it, which is like it's a little passe now, isn't it? Like
it is. It almost feels like the kind of thing that that happened like by accident, where you don't want to have a Native American character super front and center because then it first of all kind of spoils the surprise. They try to keep it a secret in the movie if you don't already know what's going on. And then I think that they also didn't want to make it seem like they were appropriating too hard, but then accidentally just have the token Native American instead. That has this one little I think it ended up worse. I think they went into it with good intentions of not having the Native American be a main character. I mean, he's in kind of a lot of scenes just here and there, It feels like something they did with, the path to evil is paved with good intentions. This feels like that on the Native American side.
Yeah. No, I can see that.
Yeah. And it's not offensive, I would say, in any degree. It feels like a missed chance. I mean, the one way I think to maybe not fix it, but what if instead of it being in Oregon, or even if it's in Oregon, it doesn't matter. It's, a maybe not a reservation that they're going to, but a native lands in general, and just most of the people around kind of know that the Wendigo exists, and it's more like a discovery for our main characters. Kind of I'm trying to think of an example where
Pet
I just
Cemetery?
feel like that's kind of been done before in other movies where the general populace knows something's going down, but the outsider doesn't. So like, I don't know that.
Or Wicker Man is another example.
Yeah,
of something like that.
The thing that I like about what this movie did, though, that if they did it that way changes entirely, is that this movie also has a background message about environmentalism.
Sure.
And the Wendigo is a stand-in for that, of course, because it's a beast of nature. And they, by putting this movie in a location where the Wendigo is in its natural habitat and everybody kind of knows and leaves it alone, like, you're changing that message entirely.
Yeah,
because this one kind of has this angle of, like, it's coming out because its habitat is being encroached on, or, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you could also make it, like, on a place where, like, you're by, like, there's a movie called Blood Quantum. I don't know if you guys have watched Blood Quantum. It's very good. It's a zombie movie, and it's it basically, this is not like a spoiler for anything because it's like one of the big things. It's a zombie movie, and like the whole thing is like Canadian indigenous people are immune to the zombie virus. So like people are trying to get onto the Native American, the Native reservations because like that's where safety is, because like they've set up basically, and they do it in a way that there's white characters and then there's Native characters, and you know there's all this stuff, and they make it really interesting because it's like this idea, right? And I think if they would have placed it somewhere there where you could have, or even like they make it where the main characters are Native, right? Because like what's her face went to California. Like she might not have even like been super involved with her culture up until that point because she was dealing with sexual abuse this entire time. And then you come back, right? There's ways that you could have done this that like could have made this more front facing if you wanted to add, like, it's a movie about a Wendigo, right? Like if you wanted to make it like, they half-assed it. That's all I'm gonna say. Like they half-assed it. They either gave Jesse Plemons the role that the dude was supposed to have, because like he's like the retired sheriff or whatever.
Yeah.
And they basically separated those two roles, and they made the retired sheriff basically unimportant, like except for like info dumps, or they added two characters that made it like even more awkward. You know, because like even though like I didn't actively dismine Jesse Plemons and the old sheriff whose actor's name escapes me, like I didn't dislike their relationship because there was like almost this like it was very subtle, but there was like a paternal aspect to it of like,
yeah,
for sure,
you're my next in line for this.
And he even mentions that a couple times to Kerry Russell's character, where it's like, oh, you don't remember the old sheriff, blah blah blah. Yeah. He's like an extra layer of his disappointment with her is that this person that is like a parental unit to him is like, she's like doesn't even care about him at all. Yeah.
So like it's not like these characters are totally not nuanced. It's just, I think more than anything, I'm just disappointed with the build-up because like they just immediately go, it's a Wendigo, and like you go, okay, like like you never feel.
It was revealed a little bit suddenly, randomly to me. The way that the trailers made it seem like it was definitely going to be a much slower burn of a horror movie in general. And I was expecting the fact that there was a Wendigo to be a much bigger surprise. And the movie kind of makes it super obvious pretty quickly what's going on.
Well, and so I noticed that too, because when you're in the slow burn portion of this film, it's probably about 45 minutes, roughly speaking, something like that. That first 45 minutes, this is like a PG-13 movie at worst in terms of rating, because nothing really happens that goes too wild. I mean, there's like one body you see. That's about it. But
which they easily could have just like cropped.
Exactly. Could have just shown the top half and you'd get a PG. You see worse than that in an episode of fucking NCIS, all right? But then when the movie does hit,
NCIS though.
the gore element really does ramp up. Like, it's not a good, like, linear progression. It's like, hey, this is an R movie. Like, it's a rough, steep increase. We see a kid get murdered. We've had a bunch of child murder in the past couple weeks here on the show. It's been wild.
Yeah, people are getting much more blatant with killing children. So speaking, I want to talk about the child murder bit because I think that actually was a good bit. But like right before the child murder bit, I have a question for you guys.
Yeah,
was the F slur necessary?
Didn't feel necessary. As soon as he said it, I was like, "Did we need to?"
Yeah,
I get it's small town Oregon, but like, I think we already knew that by then. It's not like they needed to drive home how backwoods this town
kid's a bully. Yeah, when he was raping the sock monkey, I didn't get that. But now that he's used a slur, now I get it.
Yeah. We've watched an hour of abuse from this kid. Like, I think I understand.
And it's the other thing too is the movie doesn't even have the excuse of like this happened in '94, where it's like okay maybe, but like it's very clearly set in the modern era. Like that definitely just like he said that and I literally went, huh, that was a choice. Like in the theater, just like what?
No, I'm not saying that probably.
I'm not saying that couldn't have happened in small town Oregon.
Sure,
it probably happens in small town Oregon while we're talking right now. People use that word because they're stupid, dumb idiots who don't treat human beings like human beings. But that's right. I'm taking a stand on a slur right now, people. So brave.
How courageous.
So brave.
So surprising.
Are you stealing valor from other people? Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, probably.
He's stealing valor.
But like I don't know. It just didn't feel like it added anything.
Exactly.
It bothered me. It was like like you can make a character racist or homophobic, but like it has to like they just leave it alone and then the character immediately dies. So it's like it's not even like you're afraid. You're like, yeah, kill that kid. He's a bad person. Like,
and there's also no like scenes before that where they were building up this deep like homophobic angle with the bully or anything. Like it just comes out of nowhere and then he dies.
We have to give him something. He can't just be mean for meanness sake. He's a homophobe. Now he's dead.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a child. It's a child. Give him a reason.
But then he gets pounced on and absolutely annihilated by the Wendigo, and it's pretty good. It's pretty solid.
It's interesting that they give the Wendigo, so many kills that are just out of frame or just kind of blurry or that you don't really see because even though the secret has been spoiled by now for quite a while in the runtime, and even though you've seen like a little bit of the transformation, and even though people know what a Wendigo looks like, guess what the design is at the end of the movie? It's a Wendigo. It's nothing like insane. They still
it's a tree bear.
They still keep it like a secret. Exactly what it looks like. I would have much rather that you just were able to see the monster more often because they did a really good job with the design and it looked really cool. And that first time you see the Wendigo with like the skin mask on and it's so like it was so perfect in my mind. And I wish we saw a little bit more of it instead of them pretending it was a big surprise that the Wendigo looks like a Wendigo. Surprise.
Big bet. Couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I could see that. That was a big CGI monster.
Yeah, they had low res models that they could fade, so you can't really see it. It's all blurry, and then.
So speaking of
some
the
practical
itself,
effects for just the horn through the wall.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, probably.
Did the jump scare get you?
What jump scare?
Which jump scare?
The one jump scare in it when Jesse Plemons goes to check on his partner and gets not Jesse Plemons. His partner goes to check on the shed and gets absolutely just railed by the Wendigo.
No.
It got me. It got me and Maggie both. Like, and I felt so stupid when it happened because I'm like, oh, of course. Like, but I was just kind of like just sitting back. I was very relaxed at this point. I wasn't even tense, even though I know the movie was trying to make me tense, which I think is kind of a criticism of the movie. And then it just nailed him, and I was like, oh, I did an oh fuck in the theater.
So the cop goes to investigate a shed.
Yeah.
In the middle in the dark.
I know.
And he sees in the shed the turning into a Wendigo young child.
Yes.
Whose father must be around. and you are not at all expecting something nasty to happen.
I guess my point is I was
expect
a little
the pause to go for exactly that many seconds.
Yeah.
It's just I was kind of bored through most of this film.
Really?
And I think kind of how we talked about how the Wendigo's not necessarily seen a lot, and that's maybe not even a good shot of seeing the Wendigo per se. But I don't know. When I was watching that scene, I was like, okay, the kid's here, cool. Yep, that makes sense. And then the Wendigo showed up. I'm like, oh wow, we actually get to see something happen. That's cool. Like it just, I don't know. I have a lot of thoughts on this movie as kind of being, before the cast, I said a subpar movie with above average gore, which kind of gives you an idea of where my thoughts are with this movie overall. This movie didn't click for me very well because I was very uninterested in most of what was happening throughout it. And that scene just kind of roped me back in, which was good because we were kind of...
So then you were there for the last half hour. You were there.
Yeah. Well, and then the fight scene at the end, we'll talk about a little bit.
We'll talk about it right now. You didn't like it?
Okay, I hated it.
Really?
You have this massive monster that we've seen sprint, run around, do all sorts of crazy movement, and it gets killed by being stabbed 4 times by a human that's half or less its size. Like, it just... That death of that thing felt so dumb.
Yeah.
There was nothing... Oh, the light is what scares it, so it can't get closer. There's a whole space around you that you could go walk to. Literally, there's a fire in front of you. Oh my god! It's not in front of me. Like, it just... It felt so... It kind of goes back to that, like, white savior route, where it's like, she's gonna win here. And it's just dumb. It was such a bad ending sequence. And I guess on the one hand, they set that up so then when it goes to the kid, and now you've got the emotional death of the Wendigo as opposed to the physical death of the Wendigo. But I was already checked out. By the time you get to that, like, you see the kid start to transform, I'm like, well, this is so fucking stupid. This massive monster gets killed in a stupid way. Like, I was already checked out. So at that point, when you see that, I'm like, of course she's got to stab the child. Whoop-de-fucking-do.
I think the thing if anything, that I liked about the way that she killed the Wendigo at the end is that it felt very natural. It felt old school. Like, there wasn't a modern victory against the Wendigo. And, they explain how to kill the Wendigo pretty early in the movie, and then she just does it just exactly that way. Do I agree with your other complaints? Yeah, of course. I mean, that's just valid. But it's also, like, that's a trap that most monster movies fall into, I think, at one point or another. You have a rampaging beast that has to be defeated at the end, 90% of the time. And it's like, oh, how do you kill the giant anaconda? It's like, dude, I don't know. What are we gonna do? Zap it in the water? Like, you can't catch something like this. Yeah. And so I think a lot of times, the ending is gonna be a little bit disappointing. Not to say that it isn't an indictment, but I think that this is a frequent issue with the genre. Mm-hmm. All that said, I was not personally, like, pulled out by the ending. Maybe because the movie was kind of like a little bit all over at times anyway. It was like, whatever.
I don't know. It's just, I expect more out of it, and I wanted more. And
yeah, that's
right.
And
I think if it sticks the landing a bit better for me, that's like a point increase level of difference for me. Like, a lot of this movie loses points in the first, like, 30 minutes where nothing happens, and in the last 30 minutes where it kind of shits the bed. And the in-between bit I really liked quite a lot, and there's a bunch of good gore that I've kind of mentioned.
Yeah.
So if it sticks that ending bit for me, I can forgive a slow movie that ramps into something interesting, because that's a thought process, that's a way to build a movie, cool. But when it fails to stick that landing, that's where I'm just like, well, what are we doing here? Why did I watch this?
And I feel like all of it is messy. Like,
yeah.
Like, Corbin, you brought up, like, how do we kill the beast? Like, the reality is you don't need to in a movie like this, right? Like, you really don't. Like, you can just make it out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Or you don't, right? There's a movie called The Ritual, which that movie I think handles giant spooky beast better than this movie does in a huge way. And handles a lot of the same themes actually. Now there's a lot of parallels between those two, and yeah. Anyway,
it turns out monsters are metaphorical for like the same things.
Yeah, it's almost as if man versus nature has been a metaphor the entire time. But like, there's this, because I was like, by the time the big one to go die, when it was like time to kill the baby now, I was like, yeah, I guess, like, you know, like, it wasn't.
I think you're supposed to be surprised that she has to kill the kid, because like it's I don't know, like, it feels like they're really playing on your emotions at that point. I guess. And like, I agree with you guys. It was like, yeah, of course, like.
I mean, they explicitly point that out when they say how to kill it, that it then transfers. Like, the sheriff character points that out. Mm-hmm. So, like, who's it going to transfer to?
To do that, if they wanted to do that, they shouldn't have killed the homophobe kid, because like, kids have already died in this movie. That you've already opened up
that's
that
true.
Not
part
even
of the first
Rubicon.
You've opened Pandora's box.
Like, yeah, like I'm already ready for that to happen, and it's just like, well, like, I've already seen it happen in a terrible way. And even though this kid's cute and not a bully, it's like, yeah, but like, he's been dead since this movie started. Mm-hmm. Like,
yeah, that's not even him. Like,
yeah, it's like watching Sinister 2, and when they have to kill all the ghost kids, it's like, oh, but these kids suck. Like, like, they're dead anyway. Like,
kind of how you shouted out Jesse Plemons, I think we should also shout out the kid who played Lucas. I think for a child actor, he did pretty solid. The one scene that I actually want to highlight from him is when his little brother comes knocking at his door that he's got locked up, and instead of doing anything, he puts on headphones and hugs like a baby doll. That's a pretty effective scene in trying to, like, he knows he can't, and that's like kind of heartbreaking in a good way for what this film's trying to show, the abuse this kid is dealing with by just the cards he was dealt. I don't know, that scene specifically from him, really, that stood out to me as like, that was pretty good stuff there.
He was okay. I think he was a pretty average horror child actor. When you watch a lot of horror movies, you see a lot of child acting in major roles, and I don't think that he was a standout in that way. I mean, his character wasn't asked to do very much.
Sure.
His character is mostly one note, and you can blame that on his circumstances, on him being a victim of abuse, both by the Wendigo and by his father prior. There's all sorts of, threads that you can lay down there. But when you're watching the movie, when you're seeing his performance, I think the simple reality is that his character really doesn't have any range, and he doesn't really do anything. He was okay.
You know what this movie does do very well? Speaking of, they do a really good job of, in the few moments where the dad is around, making you feel for somebody who produces and deals drugs, and making him a complicated character.
I agree.
Both in the very beginning and like the scene where he's like,
the flashback.
Where he sets it up. He's like, I love you. You cannot open this door. Like, this is for, I'm very sick, and like, you need to like be good. Like,
I think did a really good job of laying down the foundation of why, he would defend his father regardless. And I think it's supposed to invoke those scenes, and that you hear so much of, like, when kids have to like defend or accuse their parents in court, like stuff like that. Like, it felt like that to me. And definitely, I mean, I think overall we've like touched on it multiple times, but the whole abuse angle, like, it does work. I think for the most part, I think that a lot of it does work.
I think everything except for the main through line of the abuse works really well.
Except for the main through line, you said?
Yeah, I find it to be a little bit like stereotypical, like,
which
and
is
like
explain, like, which
like
angle
just this idea of like, because of my professional experience, there's a lot of abuse that I deal with. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times the stereotypical, like, I'm just so, like, everything I touch when I go back home, like, I have these flashbacks and, like, all of this, like outward, super obvious trauma is not always there. Like, Lucas and the sheriff both have clear signs of trauma that work, that are a little bit under the surface.
Yeah.
But, like, I guess if you want to look at it as the idea of, like, everybody who thinks that their experience of trauma feels unique. But, like, there's this weird, like, I don't know, it's the way that What's-Her-Face is acted and written. It feels very much like, compared to everybody else, very eye-rolly, to the point where I think the metaphor gets muddy because of just that form of trauma taking center stage. Personally, for me, it just felt very much like there was so much happening that could have, like, made, again, good soup, but, like, it was just like they just put way too much oregano in it, like, and it was just, and oregano is not a bad flavor, but, like, there's just too much. There's too much.
Gotta balance
oregano.
that out. Little crushed red pepper flakes. Get a little spice to it. A little pop.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, they could have explored the alcoholism bit. They could have explored some other aspects to it to make you have a better understanding of who she was as a character and, like, the consequences of the abuse. But they stuck so hard on being like, oh, she was abused, by the way. Oh, by the way, she was abused. Did you know that she was abused? And she would know that he's being abused by neglect because she was being abused. It's, like, very much like it came off like, ugh. Like, give me a little, like we get it. Like, with her, we got it. And
it's
I think,
the lack of subtlety.
Yes.
It's interesting because you get that subtlety, as we talked about with Jesse Plemons, but then it's so over the top with her that it's like there needs to be a better balance there.
And that's not to say in real life people don't handle abuse in very different ways, and everybody should be respectful. And if you are facing abuse, right, there are resources available to you, and please take those up. It is not your fault. You are not alone. All that good stuff, right? Just for clarity's sake, right? But, like, in a movie, right, you need a little bit more to sink your teeth into, like, because, like, when it becomes the lack of subtlety, it becomes like nobody likes to feel like they're being bashed over the head with something. Like, that's a very clumsy metaphor based off of what we're talking about. But I think, we get what we're saying. Like, nobody wants to feel like, okay, yeah, this is an allegory for abuse. And her being the main through line of that feels so just, yeah, we get it. Like,
it was
the lack of subtlety.
Almost like suffocatingly obvious, the metaphor the whole time. And not to bring back the exact same reference, but her having all those flashbacks, it did feel very, like, evening TV, very NCIS style to me, like, oh yeah, see, like, look, she was abused. Here's the scene. And, like, yeah, like first of all,
now
honestly,
we go to commercial break and you'll see just 3 seconds of the scene.
Yeah. Like, I didn't need any of the flashbacks. I understood what was going on. Like,
exactly.
You could have had, I think, probably every single one of her scenes, even the parts where she's, like, frozen up in fear at the piano or at whatever, right? And then just had, like, Jesse Plemons' character come by and, like, they can have the same interaction. Like, I don't think that we need to have all the flashbacks and everything that's going on. Maybe one,
The one thing I would disagree with you there a little bit is I think the voiceover of her dad there would work well. Instead of having, like, full-blown flashback, but just, like,
but
she's
that's
standing
different
there,
because that's, like, on
on
top of a scene. He's almost like a ghost character. Like,
exactly.
Like, okay, I get it.
Oh my God, subtlety! It's like it works well.
I don't even think we need that. That conversation that they have in the hospital, like, and she brings up, like, I would know what abuse is like. Like, you kind of get, like, this idea of, like,
she does say everything that she recounts every scene that you've seen.
Yeah,
she talks about hiding under the stairs. She talks to Lucas. Yeah. She talks about you see sexual abuse. She tells her brother. Like, all of her abuse is given to you twice, and I think that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
But like that scene, right? Like where he's like that scene would have hit even harder because like oh my, like because like I think there could be this disconnect of like, is she talking about it because she's an educator so she can like there's like there, and then all of a sudden it hits like this is why she's so focused on trying to save him because she thinks that they're going through the same experience, and also she can't see that like it affected other people in her own family, but she can see that's affecting. And then all of a sudden it adds this jealousy element of like, why do you care so much about this random kid? You didn't even care about your brother, like and like and like all of that gets lost because we know this information already, and so all of this like awesome subtlety gets washed out in the rain because we had to see the dad lying naked crying in her bed, like. Which was totally unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like
it doesn't help build like the analogy
anything
at all. Yeah, like
it makes it gives you a scary, creepy image to look at for a second, but like it doesn't do anything.
Yeah, and like I think that there's clearly him. You're supposed to see him naked, and you kind of think of like the Wendigo dad naked, and it's like oh, dad, there's the connection, but like you're already making that through line because.
She's making that
her character
yeah.
and Lucas are the same. They both have the younger brother. They both have the dad problems. Like you're already there.
I did have my narrative dissonance bell go way off at one point in this movie. Yeah,
okay.
It went off strong. And so when they take Lucas to the hospital and they're like,
okay.
well, we'll just take him. I'm like, fuck, what? Hold on, wait a minute now. CPS would be involved. Immediately. Yeah. Like, there is 0% chance you would take that kid home. No fucking way. Like,
oh, I'm sorry. No, this child's staying at the hospital.
Exactly.
And you can't even argue, oh, it's a small town, they'll just do whatever, because they already talked about CPS earlier in the movie.
Exactly. Exactly. Like
they already laid the groundwork that they have a
100%.
normal support system. So
yeah, but he's the
it
sheriff,
went off strong there. I was like, what? Huh? Wait a minute now. You can't. That's what?
He's got nowhere else to go. The orphanage, maybe. I don't know.
That
Trust
just
me, in
that was a
any
rough
small
one.
town, there are foster parents. They exist everywhere.
Yeah.
Not saying that the foster system is great. It has its issues, but like,
yeah.
He would have went somewhere.
Yeah,
exactly.
And someone else would have put him there.
Exactly. It wouldn't just be like, this is mine now. That's not how that works. That's not how any of this works.
We have to take him home. It's like that idea of like stealing babies from like the ICU or like the NICU, just being like, this is mine.
Oh my god. Oh, so before
I also had a funny moment that kind of just made me laugh. So like, all right, so Jesse pulls up. All right, he sees his partner's laying dead.
I love that none of us remembered the characters' names, by the way.
I don't remember his name, but it's Jesse Plemons. He pulls up. He sees dead partner, or maybe he thinks he might still be alive. Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, why did he think he was still alive?
I don't know.
I don't think
doesn't
you
make
expect
any sense.
anybody to be dead when you see them lying face down.
I guess. So we've already seen what this Wendigo can do, even before this, because remember they find the dead principal, they see the husk of Frank, like they know this creature annihilates things, or there is something that is killing things in horrific ways. And what does he do? He puts on a bulletproof vest. You really think that's going to help you when you've seen a human ripped in two?
Well, it makes him feel safer.
I
there's
guess
an element
it just
like
I saw that and I was like, what are you doing?
It does help. He doesn't get gored completely.
Okay.
The bulletproof vest worked.
I'm sorry. No, it did not.
He had the vest
clipped.
on.
That's it.
He lived.
No, he didn't.
What's
arm.
They show that it went through the vest, but didn't gore him completely. They show that.
I have a hard time believing a mythological creature that can just gore people in the worst way is going to get stopped by a measly vest.
And stop a bullet.
Yeah. And yet, look what happened. It did. So, poo-poo on you.
You guys know that narratives, I can really easily get twisted into narrative dissonance. And that was another one where I'm like, did that... What the fuck, man?
So I get why he would do that. That actually does make sense. Mm-hmm. What I don't get is, to your point, how it would have stopped like a razor sharp several ton, like it's like, oh yeah, a bulletproof vest will save you from a car wreck, like from getting hit by a semi, like
right. I mean, the reality is, at the end. As everybody knows, right, Kevlar does not stop knives, so like I'm sure Wendigo would have went right through it. That is the truth of it. But
Kevlar doesn't always stop bullets.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it stops the first bullet, and then after that, it doesn't work anymore, right? Bulletproof vest is only valid one time. That's the secret.
Yeah. That's my secret.
So, before we wrap it up here, I just have one question for you guys.
Fire away. At
the very end of the movie, they're looking out onto the Oregon Ocean, whatever, right? And, Kara Russell and Jesse Plemons are having a conversation about the future of the Wendigo, right? They know that, Lucas is sick, right? And there's this, like, final, a metaphor about how, the Wendigo is an analogy for abuse victims and that, like, he's always going to be living with this, basically, right? Like, and they just decide to, keep him, whatever, and then they show that Jesse Plemons is also, infected by the Wendigo, because of course. But his final line is, he's never going to get better. And I think that considering the message, that final line is a little bit like, why was that the final line? Because shouldn't the message be that you can get past abuse? And that final line, the final line of the movie is, you're never going to get over it. Like,
and what's so bad, too, is they kind of do that message when she kills Lucas, because there's like all this, you can overcome this, you can get past this, and then it's 2 minutes later, fuck you.
Yeah. Like, what?
Why? It's, what was that movie that we watched a couple weeks ago that had a really shaky image that, like, just kill yourself?
Lights Out.
Lights Out, yeah, like, you might as well just kill, like, it's a very confusing message that it just drops on you at the end.
It was like,
Lights Out, great moral message of, if you've got mental illness, blow your fucking brains out.
Yeah,
exactly.
This one was, it was totally consistent, more or less, with this messaging until the very end, and then it's like, well, actually, you can't defeat the beast within. Like, why? Why is that? Why did you end the movie like that?
Because
I don't know.
They were trying to be deep and talk about the trauma stays with you, probably, but it also didn't work. It's like, you're a broken person now, and you might as well just be broken forever.
Yeah,
like that.
And I think that they could have had a final line that conveys, it's always going to be with you, rather than you're never going to get over it. Like, I think that the exact line was just too final for what, like, the messaging of the film actually is up to that point.
There's we might not be able to help him move on, but we can help him move forward. Could have been like the same idea of, like, he might not ever get over the abuse he suffered, but he'll still be okay. It's like you can do that in a way that's like, and you can write that line way better than how I said it, but, like, that's the message that you should want to get across. If that's the message you want, with,
right?
Not, he's fucked up forever now. Like,
and we're gonna have to kill him next, and then you're gonna kill me, and then you're gonna die. Like, what is this? What is the story here?
This entire Oregon town is just fucked because
one Wendigo got oops all Wendigos. It's just also, a problem, guys.
And I know this is totally irrelevant, but where'd the first Wendigo come from?
Well, I think that was probably
the mine, dude.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole they encroach on his territory.
Come out of the mine. Like, who was that Wendigo?
I don't know.
It just lives in the mine.
Well, I mean, so they
dude.
That. So this is funny because that didn't like set off any dissonance for me. Because when I saw all the, like, hanging charms, the warding bags, I kind of just assumed, like, for some reason it was contained by the native people. And when they went in and disrupted those, that's when the meth dealers went in, or meth producers, I guess, technically speaking, went in.
Yeah, we never see them deal.
Things.
That's why, I'd be technical. They produced. They didn't deal, that we know of.
They're cooked.
It's exactly. It just seemed like they disturbed its slumber.
Yeah. It doesn't matter to me. It was just a funny thought I had. It was like, hey, wait a minute. And then they
know what other thoughts?
It's transferred by bloodshed. Yeah.
What other thoughts do you have, Corbin? Wrap it up for us.
What other thoughts? Yeah.
What would you rate this movie?
Yeah.
Final rating.
And explain that rating to me. How does that work on this show?
Well, here at Essential Scares, we rate movies from 0 to 5 with half points allowed. So 2, 2.5, 3 are all valid scores.
2.75, get out.
Terrible. Not allowed.
Listen, you're never going to get better if you give us a 2.75.
In the end, I did like a lot of this movie. I probably would watch it again. I'll probably have this in my horror collection, I think. It definitely had some downsides. I think that the metaphor is tough because it's at times too upfront and at other times exactly the right level of my first metaphor in a movie kind of deal. And I'm also kind of just a sucker
Baby's first metaphor.
Yeah. For Wendigo stories, I just like that. I love native monster movies and stuff like that. I think it's cool. I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. I liked it. I would recommend it to certain people, I guess. I wouldn't say everybody should go watch this. But depending on what you're looking for, I'd probably say, oh yeah, Antlers is pretty good. It's short enough to be an easy recommendation, I think, and it's not egregious in any way to be on anybody's trigger list, I think, unless specifically abuse is on that list, in which case forget it.
We should just, hey, this will be something that you guys will have to hear. We're probably going to have to record a small trigger warning for this episode of the podcast at some point. Maybe, probably.
I got it in post.
There you go.
Actually, I'm going to write that down because I will forget if I don't write it down right now.
That's a live editing technique that we're doing live for the podcast now.
That's right. So yeah, 3 out of 5. Bobby, what would you say?
So actually, I thought about this. I was asked this week by a friend of the podcast, Danny. She asked me because we worked together.
Shout out.
That we when I came into work, she's like, "Did you see Antlers yet?" Because she hadn't seen it. And I said, "Yeah, we're actually recording for the podcast this week." And she goes, "Oh, what do you think?" And I went, "It's okay." It was fine. It's fine. And she seemed disappointed about this in the same way that I'm sure Corbin was. So I'm gonna give this as middle of the road I possibly can. That's a 2.5 out of 5. It's fine. It probably would have gotten worse if it wasn't for Jesse Plemons, but he gave it probably half a point from the 2 to the 2.5. Right? It's better of the movies I'll forget. But it's just not a movie that'll stick with me in any way, shape, or form. It's too messy and middle of the road for it to be anything better than that. So 2.5 out of 5.
To continue the downward half-point trend, I'm at a 2 out of 5. I think that my description of a subpar movie with above-average gore pretty much wraps my thoughts up. The only other thing I would say is this movie felt trite. Just through and through for me. It just can't. I was sitting, when I finished the theater, my last note just literally says, I have a bit of a sentence in comma, trite. Just, not for me. Didn't click.
It's funny that those are the 3 scores I used as my example scores, huh?
The essential spectrum, baby.
Yeah.
Alan, speaking of
what...
essentiality.
Yeah, that's right.
Bobby.
Speaking of essentiality.
Start us off.
Oh, is this movie essential?
Is this movie essential? Now, as a recap, for anybody that skipped ahead to this portion, we gave this movie a spectrum of scores. Alan gave it a 2 out of 5. I gave it a 3 out of 5. And Bobby smacked us right in the middle with a 2.5 out of 5. Is this movie essential regardless of the score? Bobby brings us in first.
Well, no, it's not. It's not essential. It's a movie I'm going to forget about. Unless something awful happens with the director and then we go, oh, that man is bad and this movie is bad or this movie is good because it's the directorial debut of so and so. I don't know who directed this movie, right? Then no, it's just not. Unless something in the future makes this movie relevant for some reason. This movie on its own does not. It's fine. It's fine. It's a fine movie. You'll watch it. You'll probably like bits and think other bits are cringy as hell. But that's it. It's okay. I got nothing else to say. It's okay, but it's not essential.
Corbin.
Yeah, I mean, I basically agree. I liked the movie the most, and in the end, it's not the worst horror movie you're going to see this year. It's not the worst horror movie I've seen this year that came out this year. But it's also not the best, and there's not enough in this that makes it unique. Like Bobby said, unless, we're looking, 10, 15 years down the line and something came out of this that we weren't expecting, it's hard to say that it's essential. The monster elements aren't big enough or new enough or unique enough. The story as a whole isn't anything that really stands out. Nothing really stands out. Even the metaphor, which is not terrible, is better done in plenty of other movies. It's a common metaphor in horror, so it's not something that this movie needs to be essential for that alone. So for me, it's a no. But I did like it.
Shockingly, I also say no. And honestly, I don't have much to add. No. You don't need to see it. It doesn't need to be a part of it. No. Just no. You guys, there's no point for me to go on for 3 minutes on my thoughts. Just no.
Hey Corbin, was the worst movie you saw this year that came out this year? Was it The Purge: Anarchy?
It's hard to say between The Purge, Anarchy, and Spiral which one was worse.
I haven't seen Spiral. I can only imagine.
Spiral from the Book of the Saw.
That's the one. Spiral from the Book of Saw, which was pretty
the other
bad.
Spiral was actually pretty good.
Yeah, well, this one was not so good. Yeah.
Speaking of Saw 3, the Saw 3, Bobby, what are your handles?
What are my handles? Where
Saw 3. Yeah, where can we find you?
And what have you been up to lately?
Me?
That too.
Nothing. I've been up to nothing. Literally nothing. I've been so busy with life things that I'm in a theater production and that we're wrapping up this weekend. So yeah, that's been taking up my life for the last 3 months, and I had a lot of fun. I got a lot out of it. I met a lot of really nice people. I'm ready to have my life back for a little bit.
By the time you're watching or listening to this, Bobby has finished it. So congrats to Bobby for being done with the musical.
How brave. Yeah. How brave of Bobby.
How brave. I'm so brave. That being said, you can find me at twitch.tv/theredweenie. After this week, I will be going back to regularly streaming Destiny content and probably other stuff as well. I do want to get back into streaming. I do want to get back into actually playing video games. I kind of want to get better at playing with mouse and keyboard because I on certain things, right? I might slowly, I guess, because I can do it through Xbox Game Pass. I can maybe play the PC version of Destiny.
I was about to suggest that.
Could.
So I might give that a shot.
I think that's the best way to start because it's games that you're already familiar with, so you're just learning the controls.
Yep.
Yeah.
I might give that a shot a little bit, see how that works for me. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Could be fun, could be cool.
Yeah.
But yeah. You can find me at twitch.tv/theredweenie.
There you go. You can find me anywhere at Corbangarang. I have been quite active on Twitter and recently Instagram as well. I have been doing a hobby streak. I'm on, as of this recording, day 7. I technically missed 2 days, but I was sick as a dog, so I let it slide. Hopefully by the time you're listening to this, I'll be on day 10 or whatever. Every single day I'm doing a little bit of Warhammer or Lego or something, just to work on my backlog and get my army ready. besides that, I have been working through Buffy and Angel still. I am almost done with Season 1 of Angel, Season 4 of Buffy. That is a incredibly long pursuit, but I'm well on track to finish ahead of my original April timeline.
Nice.
And I am almost done with Super Hot Mind Control Delete. I have been
So
really
good.
lately trying to like focus in and just finish a game before playing other games, because I think everybody runs into this issue where they like play a game like 60% of the way through, and then a new game comes out and you're like, oh, I'll play this game, and then like you never finish anything because that cycle just perpetuates eternally. And so even though I have a bunch of games I really want to play, every time I have even like 10 minutes, it's like, okay, I'm just going to play one round of Super Hot and I'm going to try and finish this game. So I'm almost done. And that game's awesome. It's not as good as the original. I think that it doesn't quite work at times, but it's still fun. It's still super hot.
Super.
But yeah,
hot.
at Corbangerang. Alan?
You can find me at A Seal Punter just about anywhere. I also have been a little more active on Instagram, mostly just me doing gym pictures of lifting heavy things.
Love that.
Brother.
I have been playing this morning, actually, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Picked it up on my PlayStation because I want to platinum that game. For those of you that don't know, Sekiro is easily the hardest of the Dark Souls, of the From Software games, mostly because in the Dark Souls games, you can summon people to help. There's no option to do that in this game. So either
This
you
guy's
figure
never
out,
played Elder Ring.
dude, I can't talk about it. I can't talk about it.
Oh, I'm sorry. You thought I said Elden Ring. No. I said Elder Ring, a different From Software game.
I hate you.
I thought you said Lord of the Rings.
See, I got that confused with Dune, the book I've been listening to lately as well on my new drive to work.
There you go. Hey, has anybody else seen Dune?
I
meant
have
to bring
not,
that
no.
up. Oh, it's very good.
I've heard nothing
I
but
need
great.
to
Highly
get through
recommend.
the book
Highly
first.
recommend.
Yeah, that's
you
how
only
I
have
feel
to
like I
read
should.
like half of it, actually.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah, here
cool.
we are.
It's just part one. Yeah.
But that's been me. So Corbin,
Nice.
where can we find this show that we do?
This show is Essential Scares, and you can find it on all socials anywhere at Essential Scares. The only difference is that on Instagram it's essential_scares, because that's just how it went for Instagram. We're fairly active everywhere, especially Twitter. We wrapped up our 33 days of horror last week, and that was 33 straight days of horror reviews. If you liked that, please let us know. That was a mass effort by the three of us and producer Mallory. It took a lot for us to watch a movie every single day and write a review and get those posts ready and make all those graphics and everything. It was super cool, and I love that we did it. But if you guys liked it, let us know, and we'll do more of that. You'll probably notice that we haven't written a review since then. Nothing against writing reviews, just taking a little break, and we'll probably do more like written content like that in the future.
I have something against written reviews.
That's fair. Alan and I will probably do more written content in the future.
I mean, if you guys like the fact that I wrote like a paragraph and you thought that those were funny and entertaining, I'll keep writing those. That's no problem.
That's your personality though. Like Corbin and I I think naturally can be a little verbose at times. And that's just us. If your angle is like, here's like my thoughts, man, that works. That's your thing, you know?
I quite enjoyed several of Bobby's reviews.
Oh, absolutely. Make no mistake. Like, I enjoyed the work that I put in. Specifically, I think Halloween is by far the best review I wrote the entire month. But Bobby's were great because it's like, all right, it's going to take me 45 seconds to read this, and I got a glimpse of it. And that works, you know?
You got the idea of how I was feeling.
Exactly.
Day of the Dead is probably my favorite out of all of them. Day of the Dead
that
is
one was
terrible,
great.
and
You
I
mean
think
the
I
review
love
that
it.
you can read in the entire preview?
Yeah.
So good.
And that was important because the score does not reflect Bobby's thoughts, actually. So like you really do have to read those 3 sentences. Anyway, if you like the reviews, let us know. We'll do more reviews.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, anywhere at Essential Scares. But that wraps us up for the week, guys. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thank you for everybody for listening. If you like the show, give us a thumbs up, share it with your friends, give us a review, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you to Alan and Bobby for being on the show this week. Next week, we're watching Midnight Mass. I've been your host, Corbin, and this has been Essential Scares.
The breakdown is very sick, baby.